Hello, everybody. I am Jenna Kutcher, author. I can now say New York Times best-selling author of the book, How Are You Really? And I'm so excited to spend time with you today. I've been getting so many questions from people asking, how can I get an autographed signed copy, which to me feels very unreal that anyone would want my signature. And this is how you can do it. So today we get to spend time together. I've got a bunch of questions from a lot of you. And before we dive into those, I just want to share a little bit about the book and the process and this last week, and even more specifically, this last 24 hours. So it has been an almost 2-year journey to this point today where I can literally hold my book in my hands, sign my name on it, and send it out into the world. And it has been a process that, one, I never, ever thought I would do. I actually swore I would never do it. But two, it was a process that was so stretched out that to be at a finish line and a starting line at the same time, meaning the book is out into the world and now we've got to get it out to all the amazing humans we wrote it for. It feels really unreal. Like it feels somewhat unsettling, but like in the best possible way. And when I planned this book signing event with Premiere, I was really hoping that Drew could come and sit with me and we could like talk about it all, because this man has watched this entire process unfold. But alas, he is wrangling 2 children with a little pool and sprinkler. And so he's at home doing that. But I wanted to kind of walk through a little bit about what the book is, because I think a lot of times when we are so entrenched in our own work, we just assume, like, of course, everyone knows I've been talking about this nonstop for 2 years. But in reality, so this book, specifically in this timing, the timing of the world that we're finding ourselves in, the timing of the climate, the heaviness of everything, this book is the perfect companion for you in your life right now. And I can say that with such certainty because it feels divinely orchestrated. It was kind of nuts with everything going on in the world this last week. There was a lot of times where I was like, whoa, like now more than ever, we need to be asking ourselves the question, like, how am I really? But like, what do I believe in and what do I stand for? And like, what do I want my life to look like? And how do I want to take control of my life and my future? And how can I make this world a better place for future generations? And like all of these different questions that I think a lot of us are asking. And some of us are afraid to ask. And this book is your perfect companion. Like if I, a mom of 2 who worked at Target, who bought a $300 camera on Craigslist, can create and unlock a life that is rich in so many ways, that is experienced, that I am awake to, that I truly enjoy living. I want to take you on that journey, not so that you can hear my voice, but so that you can hear your own voice again. One of the coolest things about this whole experience is in my DMs every day, I get to see one, where my book is in the world. It has been to many countries. It has been on many beaches, at many lakes, in many bedrooms. And that feels surreal in and of itself, but also just hearing messages from people who are reading it. And it was really amazing. One of the days that the book came out, one of my early readers sent me this message and she just said, I'm only through chapter 2 and I'm already hearing my own voice stronger. Like this whisper that I've ignored for so long, I'm hearing it again. And to me, like that was everything. Like that is what I want. I want you to live your truth, and I want for you to hear your own voice, and I want for you to move through life in your own way and define success on your own terms. And so getting messages like that has just been so incredible. So this is the book. The book is How Are You Really? You can pick up a signed copy by following the link right here, premiercollectibles.com/Kutcher. And I'm going to be answering some questions for you that are coming in for those of you who are grabbing signed copies. So I'm just so excited. Okay. So Kendall from Illinois says, what inspired you to write this book now? So there is a chapter in the book about this process, and I don't want to give it all away because honestly, it's like my favorite part of the book, but I'll tell you a little bit of the story. So it was in 2020. And this is part of the story that we weren't able to share in the book, but Drew and I had talked about expanding our family again. And if you know my history at all, you know that we struggled. It was a 3-year long period of trying to grow our family before we had Coco. And so the thought of like throwing myself into that ring again was actually really terrifying and exciting at the same time. And we were really planning on starting our family, and we were celebrating our 10-year anniversary. It was when COVID was still going on, and I mean, it's still going on, I should say. And we had booked a massage to enjoy our anniversary. And I went to this incredible massage place in Grand Marais, Minnesota. I met an incredible woman named Thea, who is still very much a part of my life. I need to text her that we made the New York Times list. And she did my massage, and she's super intuitive. And she just said to me after the massage, she goes, do you have any questions? Can I tell you what came up for you today? And I was like, yes, tell me everything. And she goes, there's something you need to do, and you know what it is, and it needs to come before the baby. Because all I could think about was a baby and like praying for a baby and like hoping for another baby. And she said, you know what it is, and I need you to go out and do it. And the minute she said that, I knew it was to write a book. And this is not something that I had on a vision board. This is not something I had written down. This is not even something I'd really fully entertained in a real way. And she said, all she said to me was, there's something you need to do, and I need you to go out and do it. And literally that night, I opened up a Google Doc, and it just started happening. And what's super interesting is that a lot of people have been asking me, like, what was the process for writing a book, and like teach about that. And the book fit into my life. My life never once revolved around the book, even in like launch week, like the craziest week ever. And so I wrote this book in like 20-minute sections during nap times, or once Coco was in bed, while I was pregnant. I mean, it was just like this unfolding of like the progress that you can make with just like 20-minute segments of time is incredible. And so, yeah, it was just a really interesting process. So that is the answer to that question, Kendall. This is how it was born. There's something I needed to do. It needed to come before the baby. And here's my book. Olivia from Ohio says, what's the big theme or takeaway that you want your readers to gain? So this is huge. And I kind of touched on it, but I want to hit it again because it's so important. So the subtitle of the book right down here is Living Your Truth One Answer at a Time. And yes, this is a book, but like to me, it is so much more than that. It is like a way to move through life. It is a philosophy. It is something that you adopt into your life as a daily practice. And when I think about the question, how are you really, like, if you're really honest in the human experience, if you asked yourself that question every single hour of the day, your answer would probably change based on your circumstances, your work, your life, your relationships. And so I feel like I have been so energized and aligned in this process because I am constantly checking in with myself. And so the biggest thing that I want people to gain is to not be afraid to check in with themselves, but also to start checking in on each other a little bit more. We experienced a really devastating loss this last weekend, and it just hit me how even when we're fully surrounded by people, even when we're in rooms with people, in spaces with people, at work with people, like a lot of times we still feel alone. And I want us to not only become people who ask ourselves, how am I really? And getting honest there, but people who check in on each other. And when we say, how are you really? We are genuinely creating space and trust that we will carry whatever that answer is in the most honest way that we can. Okay, Shannon says, how did you start out in your career? So while this is absolutely not a business book, I share a lot of my origin story. The biggest things that I want for you to know is that I graduated college, started a job that I had interned at, working for Target, and I was thrilled. I mean, to have a job and a 401k and benefits is incredible and such a gift. But I remember sitting down for a meeting and my boss handing me basically my 5-year plan with the company saying, hey, we've mapped this all out for you. And for some people, that might be the biggest blessing. But for me, it was like, wait, where do I fit in this plan? Like in all of life's supposed to's, like, aren't I supposed to be the author of my life in the sense of like figuring out what do I want? And I remember getting offered like this idea of a promotion and feeling like, I don't even want more money because that's more responsibility and more time. And I went back to my office and I saw this picture of Drew and I still have it. I need to dig it out. I have it. It's in this red frame. It's this picture of us at a college party from when we went to UW Stevens Point. And I remember sitting down at my desk and seeing that picture and thinking, do I want to spend my life working in this office and just looking at that picture? Or do I want to figure out a way to spend my life looking at the man in the picture? And that was where I figured out, like, I don't exactly know what I want, but I know what I don't want. And so how do I start moving in a direction away from that? And something that I think is really important, especially in this day and age, like there are so many amazing and well-intentioned quotes like pursue your passion. And you're like, so cool, except for I don't even know what I'm passionate about. Like, I don't even feel like a passionate person. And for me, a lot of times that I've made like really impactful decisions or career moves or even like relationship moves, it's come out of this place of like, I don't exactly know what I want, but I know what I no longer want or what is not working for me. And how do I move away from that and just start moving towards whatever is next? And so then came the camera and the photography business, which pivoted into the podcast, the Gold Digger podcast, which is the #1 marketing podcast in the country, and just pivoted out into all the things that you see today. And so that was where I got my start. And honestly, it's just been so surreal to see all these full circle moments of seeing like my book on shelves of stores that I've worked in, being able to sign copies of this book for you here with Premiere. Like, it's just bananas. Okay. Catherine said, this is exclusive content right here because I haven't talked about this yet. Catherine from Utah said, what has been a highlight of your career? Okay. So I have to tell a story about last night because I haven't been able to share it yet. So in the book world, the New York Times bestseller list is a really big deal and it's really, really hard to get. And I knew that yesterday would be the day that I would find out, did I make the list or not? And I told Drew, I was like, if I yell or if I like come running, just put up your phone and like videotape. Cause I don't know what I mean, I might be bawling that I didn't get it. I might be dancing I don't know. And so my phone rings and it's my incredible book agent, Margaret. And I like see her number pop up and I like fly. I was like working in bed in our mother-in-law suite. We call it my mom's room. I was working in bed and I like come running out and I'm like, babe, get your camera. All of a sudden, Quinn starts crying. Coco's running around in our backyard naked looking for agates. And I'm like trying to answer this call that I know is going to deliver the news. I don't know what to expect. And so it is utter chaos. I answer the phone. Thankfully, most of the women on my team are moms as well, so they get it. But when they said that I made the New York Times list, that was a huge highlight. And even the chaos of that moment was so beautiful to me because, I mean, this whole book process happened with kids on my hip, with a kid in my belly, and so it was just very much this moment of like all of this work, this 2 years dedicated to this book, this project, this mission, this idea. Not only is it worth it would have been worth it without it, but that it's like touching this many lives. It's kind of crazy. Okay. Tyler from Arizona. I love this question. Favorite episode from Gold Digger. So I have so many favorite episodes. I'm going to list a couple special ones. So there have been episodes where Drew and I talk, which I just love because it almost feels like a time capsule of our relationship. I loved the birth story podcast of our girls' deliveries just because I love birth and I think it's so cool. And I'm so glad we recorded those because so many of the details have faded away with motherhood. I've also really loved interviewing my mom. She's just so incredible. And so getting to like interview her has been really, really special to me because I just think, asking some of those questions that you've always wondered to your loved ones, like how special is that? But another episode that my family and I have been talking about a lot is an episode with Tracy Otsuka, and it's about ADHD and what that is. And I did that episode not even having any inclination that I likely had ADHD myself. And I feel like that episode was literally life-changing for me. After Tracy and I finished talking, she stayed on the line and she goes, Jenna, you do know why I wanted to come on Gold Digger? And I said, no, why? And she goes, because you 100% have ADHD. Like the way you work, the way your brain works, like it is so clear to me. And it started a lot of discussions inside of my family and a lot of like self discovery about neurodivergence in your brain and how that works. And I just feel like I've learned a lot about myself since that episode. It was really life changing. So if you're curious about that, ADHD, search Gold Digger Tracy Otsuka and check it out. And she has an amazing podcast herself. Okay. Connor says, what keeps you going when you get tired? So, what's so fascinating right now is like, I have never in my life truly, Scout's honor, been more energized or busy. Getting a book out into the world requires a massive amount of energy. And I went into this year saying, like, I don't want to be tired. I don't have time to be tired. I don't do tired. I still am not sleeping through the night thanks to 2 children. And I am running around balancing motherhood and business. And my why has to be so strong. Like I have to like literally anchor myself to my why in a really deep way in order to keep me going. The other thing that I want to say, though, that you might not be expecting, Connor, is that when you get tired, you shouldn't quit. You should just rest. And I think a lot of times people are quitting on their dreams way too early when it's not necessary, when really all they're being called into is to rest. And so what keeps me going when I get tired is resting and listening to my body and listening to what that tired feeling is trying to teach me. Even in the book launch process, like last week, it fell on the holiday weekend and I spent time with my family and I ended up doing a sleepover with my girls. And like, my mom was like, are you sure you don't need to be like doing work or anything? And I was like, you know what? I scheduled in this rest. Like I knew I would need it. I knew I would crave it. And so I just want to say, like, should you quit or do you just need a nap or do you just need rest? And that keeps me going. Okay, Christina said, do you have a specific morning routine? What are some practices that help you stay afloat? Okay, so this is actually hilarious. One thing about writing a book, so you have to be ready to contradict yourself. And even listening to my very own podcast, there are certain things that I said years ago where I'm like, oh, that's not true for me any longer. And so when I was writing my book, How Are You Really? I had to like come to terms with like, here's what I know so far. Here's what's true for me. And there's actually a part in the very end of the book. So we did this really cool thing where it invites you to do like a life inventory to check in with yourself. But we also have it called like Jenna's Jump Starts. And so it's like when how you're feeling is, and it walks through all these different things. And one of the things that we said in that was like, I am not someone who does a morning routine. I just have this rhythm. Here's what it says too. I will not tell you that you need to have a morning routine to be successful or happy or to lead a life that is fulfilling. In fact, for the last few years, I've lived in guilt that I didn't have this precise 5-step process on how to wake up and be, amazing. And so for me, I don't have a specific morning routine because I don't know what time my girls are going to wake up. I don't know if we're going to have to jump out of bed or if we're going to get up slowly. But I have started to introduce specific things in my life in the morning. Like I drink a green juice every morning. Before launch, I was doing a lot of yoga. So if Coco was waking up between the hours of 5 a.m. and 7 a.m., which has happened a lot lately, instead of like sitting down and watching TV or whatever, I'm like, all right, let's move. So we would just get out yoga mats and she could either play by herself or do yoga with me. I've been meditating. Last night I was going to bed and I was like, oh, I got to meditate. I'm on like a 38-day streak. And it was something that I thought I could never do because of my brain and the way it is wired. And it's been something that has really been impactful for me. And so nothing necessarily happens specifically in the morning, all letting things unfold as the day happens with children. But there are practices like yoga, like meditation, like drinking green juice or lemon water or whatever that is that I have in my life that are certain triggers throughout my day, but also just like things that keep me fueled and energized. Okay, Lindsay from South Carolina said, how did you and your husband meet? What's your advice you would give a girl who is single and wanting to get married, but also very focused on her career? Okay, I love this question. So we met when we were 18 in college, my freshman year at the University of Wisconsin, Stevens Point. And we had the same, so I had the double major, he had the major and minor of business and communication. And so we kept like seeing each other, kept bumping into each other, but we did not date for 3 years. So we have this joke in our relationship like 3 years later, because we were friends for 3 years, and we dated for 3 years, then we got married, and like it took us 3 years to have a baby and like all these things. It's like 3 years for a lot of things. And I think it's really tricky right now, because I think there's this notion of you need to balance everything. So when you're ambitious in your career, you must balance it with relationships. And I just don't subscribe to this idea that like everything has to be perfectly balanced. I think there are seasons and times where there are different priorities in your life, and you've just got to get brutally honest with what is the priority right now. If it's career, it's career. And I really have learned to trust in the timing of my life. There's a line in the book that I heard years ago where it's like, sometimes the season of waiting is just as important as what it is that you're waiting for. And I feel like that's really powerful, because a lot of times we waste our waiting seasons, like when we're waiting for something, whether it's career or relationship or children or whatever that is. And like, I think it's so important to just be doing the work while you're waiting. There's this chapter in the book, chapter 9, it's called Vision Fulfilled. I think it's probably my favorite chapter of the book. And in that one, I talk about like how important it is to step into the version of you that you want in the future, and like start to become the person who is ready for what it is that you want. So in that chapter, I tell this story about how I did this visualization exercise, and I was envisioning this little girl and pancakes and all these things. But I was recognizing that like my current life, the life that I was living in while I was doing that exercise, did not match the vision at all. I wasn't showing up as that type of woman. I wasn't dressing the part. I wasn't feeling the energy of that part. And so I would just say, like, figure out what your priority is, be unapologetic about that pursuit, but also how can you be like equipping yourself to show up as the person who wants to be in a relationship, that's ready for a relationship, that is independently happy and successful on your own. Okay. Hannah said, what is your favorite part about motherhood? Oh my gosh. Okay. I'll do one for each of my girls because they're in very different stages. So with Coco now, it is so fun because we can literally have like full on conversations. And so, like even yesterday, I was working and she would like leave the room and 10 minutes later come running in and be like, Mom, I missed you. And like, that is just so special. Like she's very much at this stage of life where she's understanding my work. She found my book in our house yesterday and I could hear her in the other room. And she's like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, it's Mom's book. And she like comes sprinting into the room. She's like, Mom, look, this is your book. And while I don't think she fully understands that like just seeing her get this level of understanding feels really special to me. And also just like having conversations with her is just, it's a hoot. Drew and I just look at each other sometimes and smile. And then with Quinn, so she's 7 months old, and just like nursing her, and like looking down into her little eyes. And it's still so surreal to me that she has brown eyes, because Coco has blue eyes. I have green eyes. Drew has brown eyes. But seeing this little brown eyed girl, she is just the happiest baby. She is amazing, like angelic. And I just love that like connection with her. And I'm also very proud of myself that like through this crazy work season, I've been able to nurse her and stay, keep that a priority, because I really just cherish that time with her and that connection with her. Okay, Laura from Georgia says, this is funny to me. I don't know why. Did you ever think you would become a hit sensation? I mean, am I a hit sensation? That's news to me. That's wild. It's funny. We were with my family for the 4th of July, and like one of my aunts, Mary, she was like, I always knew. I always knew. And I was like, you knew what? Like, and she's so sweet. She's like, I always knew you'd do like big things. And, it's wild because I think I've had a lot of confidence in myself. And there's a chapter in the book about how that and like my childhood self carried forward, but also how do we find that confidence that we had when we were children. But it is really surreal to me because when you level up in your life, whatever that looks like, you if you're lucky, you get to be surrounded by people at that level. And so to me, the work that I'm doing is just on par with the work that my friends are doing, the peers in my group are doing. And sometimes I forget that like it is so far from what I imagined for my own life. And the things that I just expect out of myself, like they are things that I never even dreamt for myself. And so, did I ever think I'd become a hit sensation? No, but being a hit sensation to me means like being happy and like doing work that matters to me. And those two things I'm doing. So maybe I did. Um, Josie said, where do you get your inspiration from? So one of the biggest things about writing this book, was really thinking about and leaning on the conversations that I have been having with the women in my life. There are stories about conversations I have with my neighbor when we were in the depths of COVID, with my college best friends who I'm going to see in a couple days. There are conversations I had with my Aunt Mary, my mom, my sister. Like it was really inspired by like the things that people say when they feel safe enough to share, and a lot of the chapters were inspired by these types of conversations that are happening behind closed doors that like people are waiting to have, but not able to. And so in the book process, there was a big challenge for me of like, how am I connecting intentionally with people? The whole second section of the book is who you have and who has you. And it's really just this section of the book that invites people to share about like, how are you really, but how are you connecting with people intentionally? I think that's really huge. Okay, Kennedy said, for someone wanting to start her own business, what are some practical tips? Okay, let's get into practicalities. Okay. So one of the things that I think is something that I've been thinking about a lot and something I can share about from my own experience is a lot of times when we have a dream or a vision or we want to start something, whether it be a business or a book or a podcast or whatever, we get so fixated on doing all of the things around the actual thing that'll get us closer. If you want to write a book, you've got to open up a document and start typing. If you want to start a podcast, you literally just have to hit record. And I've learned this from my own doing because I have been, in times where I'm like, I want to start a podcast. And then I'm like, I got to make the logo and I've got to figure out the perfect format and I've got to figure out where I'm going to host it and all these things that like, yes, they can matter and make a difference, but like I literally just need to hit record. And so for someone wanting to start your own business, you have to do the actual thing. Like my friend Tiffany Alicia, she's a best-selling author. She's amazing. And she came on my podcast and said something like, don't get so busy trying to look like a business that you forget to be an actual business. Like an actual business has a product, a service, or an offer that they are selling in exchange for money, and that makes them a business. It's not the logo, it's not the website, it's not the social media. It's like actually the art of exchanging. And so that's something I want to encourage you to do. Okay. Lindsay from Brooklyn, New York says, favorite thing to do in big cities. Loved seeing your trip to NYC with your family. Okay, I got to talk about our trip to New York because it was unreal. It was also Drew's first time to the city. Quinn had never been there. Coco does not remember being there because she was there when she was a baby. And my mom came with, which was amazing. And so it was just so special because Drew and Coco went to the Empire State Building. We all went to Central Park. We rode the merry-go-round. Drew and I went on a date. Like we made it so that it was still like a family experience, not just consumed by press and the book and all these things. And so we came home and we were all just like, that was a wonderful trip. Like it was surreal, like the Today Show and Times Square and all these things. But it was also like a trip where we actively made memories as a family. And so favorite things to do. I mean, I love good food. I love exploring. I love watching my kids like make memories. I think it's such a fun age with Coco where she like is actually going to remember these types of things. And so that's been really, really, really special. Okay. Guys, keep on dropping in questions so I can answer them. You can pick up a signed copy of the book at this link right here. I've got my Sharpie. I've had to learn how to sign books, which feels so unreal. Okay, Rachel says, How do you and your husband water your relationship so it doesn't grow stagnant? This is a great question. I'm only laughing because it's something we like constantly have to work at and talk about, especially when we get busy. When we were in New York, my mom came with us, which was such a blessing. And she babysat or stayed back with the girls so that Drew and I could go out to dinner. And I was so tired. It was the same day as the Today Show. So I feel like I didn't sleep all the night before. And then I was like on that high. And then we went to Central Park and then we were leaving late. So we had to make our reservation later. And I was like, I don't know if I can rally for this dinner. But I think anytime that you can have intentional time together, and it's really easy for us, we're not at all codependent. Like we love our own time and our alone time, but it's really easy for us to kind of get into our groove where we just kind of do our own things. And so it's like, how can we be together, do things together, stay and like have shared things that we love. And sometimes it comes in like the silliest forms. Like when COVID was going on, we did puzzles. So we would put Coco to bed and we would sit down and do a puzzle together and like have a little nightcap and put on music. And like that was something that was really special. We also make sure that like we do things as a family where it's like we're all just like super present. Lately, we've been doing bedtime. So like for the girls, we'll all pile into our bed. We each get to choose one book to read, and we do things like that as a family as well. But I would just say stay connected, stay in conversation. Another thing that we do that has been super helpful and something that we need to get back on, we kind of fell off the bandwagon. So this will be holding me accountable as well, is there's this app called Paired, Paired. And basically it's like marriage counseling slash like if you had a dating app for your own spouse, where basically every day you get a prompt, like a question, and you cannot see your partner's answer until you respond. So it'll be like a question. It could be like about finances or intimacy or money or hobbies or whatever, connectedness. Like it asks all these different questions. And then it'll flag you and say, like, your partner answered, make sure you answer, and then you unlock theirs. And so there's different quizzes and things like that. And it's been really beneficial for us just because one, it's like a constant check-in, a daily check-in. But two, it like opens up conversations for us to have with one another, that kind of like unlocks things. Like we've been together now, gosh, I think 13 years. We've known each other 15 years. And so it's been really, really powerful to like check in and like also recognize like, hey, we've evolved and changed. Like certain things that maybe worked in the past don't work any longer. Things like that. Okay. Dana Siegel says, had you been writing stories over the years in a Google Doc or other format, and then you went back into writing the book? So great question, Dana. Nobody's asked me that. No, I had not been writing stories or like creating a log of ideas like that. It was really organic when the process happened. I was recently, there was a Facebook memory that popped up for me that was from, gosh, it was like 13 years ago or 11 years ago. And it said like, I don't even know if anyone reads my blog. It's okay if I'm just writing for myself. I love writing, like something along those lines. And so like it reminded me of like I have been writing for over a decade. Like my blog has been in existence since like 2011. But the book is actually filled with stories that I've never shared anywhere. Part of the book writing process was this part of the process where it was called Kill Your Darlings, which essentially was like take anything that you shared anywhere else and just remove it. Like it unless it is a very crucial part of your story, it does not belong in the book because it's somewhere else. And if you can imagine having over 500 podcast episodes and thousands of blog posts and thousands of Instagram posts, having to like cross off anything that you've already shared means you've got to like really dig deep into the well of stories. And so it was really wild how once I started writing, I would like wake up in the middle of the night and be like, oh, I got to tell that story, or like, oh, that was super interesting. And so it all kind of unfolded, but it like I had to lean on a lot of my different life experience. Like there are stories from my childhood and stories from adulthood and like all of those things in between. So I didn't have like a vault waiting. Shannon Marie Green says, Jenna, you are an inspiration. My life standard so far has had fear about feeling confident, and you are showing me how to face that and embrace confidence. Oh, I'm so excited for you. I feel like confidence is something that can be felt and experienced by other people. And like when you show up more confident, you invite other people to do that. So I'm so excited. Teresa Evans says, love your book, Jenna Kutcher. I am at chapter 5 and reading about myself. I love that. One thing that I think is so special about this book is it's not something you necessarily want to speed read, because inside of each chapter, there are these little call outs in here, and there are invitations to dive deeper on a certain topic. And there are also these prompts. So if you can see here, it says like, how are you really? So I'll just read you this one. This is from the chapter called Mothers Studying Mandarin, How to Have Some Fun Again. And this chapter, the prompts are, what can you do in 5 minutes just for you? What is a thing that once sparked your curiosity and joy that you've pushed aside in the busyness of your life? And how can you bring it back? So like throughout this book, there are different prompts and questions that really get you thinking, kind of like that marriage app with Drew, where it's like, oh, I haven't really thought about that, or I haven't considered that. And so I really wanted it to be something that was interactive, but I also wanted it to be something that was like inviting you to step into your truth, to get really honest with yourself. And sometimes we need those like prompts to dig a little bit deeper. Elizabeth says, hi, Jen, I've been following you since you started. From Christchurch, New Zealand, and I'm proud of all of your accomplishments to date. What has been the highlight of your journey so far? So I shared about last night and finding out that we made the New York Times list, but I would say that there are so many surreal moments in this journey, and the best ones are ones that I am with my family. So it's like realizing like my success isn't success if it's not shared, whether it's sharing it with family or friends or bringing other people with me. And I feel like that is something that I want for my whole life. Like I have done more than I ever dreamt possible. I've experienced more than I ever dreamt possible. And like all I want to do now is just like link arms with people and bring them on this. I was actually texting a bunch of my friends today who are writing books. And I was like, I want to host a Zoom call for women authors who are coming out with a book in the next year and just share about like, here's my experience, because I have loved this experience. Like literally, I might be the only person I know that has like loved every aspect of it, from the writing the book to the marketing to the promotion to the creative to like the impact. Like I have just come alive in this experience, and I want more people to experience that. Because it is such a long project and it has so many facets to it. And so I think one of my highlights is just like being able to experience things and then like bring people in with me. Like this isn't reserved just for me, it's reserved. And I just want to bring people on the journey with us. Shauna Oliveira said, anything in particular you're going to do to celebrate this success? Okay, now you're going to hold me accountable. I do this to my friends all the time. So Shauna, you are my person. I do this all the time to my friends where I'm like, okay, and how are you going to pause and celebrate? What does that look like? So a couple things. So last night, Drew put in a bottle of Dom Perignon that we have had in our pantry for years. And he put it in the fridge. And the funny thing is that I really haven't been drinking lately. Just like, I just don't feel great. And so I really haven't been drinking. So I'm like, do I really want to do that? Because I'll probably have a headache tomorrow, but we're going to celebrate. And I'm going to take August like pretty much off and just be at our lake house and like be with the kids. And like that was like my end point. There's a chapter in the book called What is Your Enough Point? And I recognize that like this launching process takes a lot out of me. So like, where am I going to draw the line in the sand and say like, okay, and now I can rest. And so August, we're going to spend a lot of time up at the lake. And then I texted some of our best friends and said, I think we should book a bougie little weekend getaway that has like a robe and a spa and good food. And that's all I want to do. So we're actually looking at the calendar for doing something like that, just to have like a little kid-free time to connect and actually like pause and celebrate. So those are the things that I want to do. Okay. Susan Bateman McMullen says, you are amazing. Loving the book. She's talking about my book. How are you really? Thank you so much, Susan. Thank you for getting the book and enjoying it. It means so much to me. Tammy also said, hello, Jenna, loving your book so far. Great job. Thank you. This is amazing. Okay, we have, let's see here. Oh, Patty Patty Levine says, hello, Jenna. I just finished the Audible version today. So great. Thank you. One thing that I love that I haven't shared about too much is the Audible process. So first you want to get a signed copy. And one thing that I think is awesome is that people that love the Audible also end up buying a copy, just because it's like there is something so powerful about having a tangible book, and especially a signed copy from me. But having a tangible book in your life as that reminder to check in, and also just as something to like share. But when we did the Audible, I ended up recording it in town here in Duluth. My cousin, Chris Allen, who is an amazing radio DJ here, was my sound engineer, and my neighbor, Mary, who runs the media company in Duluth, gave me space and like figured it out so that I could record and be at my own home during the day and like with my kids. And so it was I loved the Audible experience. Okay, let's see here. Patty said, this is exactly what I was just saying. She said, I finished the Audible book and picked up the hard copy. It's so great. Thank you so much. Inspiration and tidbits that truly resonated with me. The writing prompts are already helping me. Shauna said, as someone who has been consuming your content since 2016, I've really enjoyed the stories in your book. I'm learning so much more about you. This is Shauna. I love that comment because, so here's something kind of crazy. So maybe you guys have experienced this, but like I feel way more comfortable sharing things with strangers than like sometimes sharing with the people closest to me. Cause it's like, I don't know, it just feels so vulnerable. So Drew didn't actually get to read my book until like a week or two ago, when I finally gave him a copy and said, here you go. And I like, it just felt so vulnerable in sharing it with him. And I would walk in at night and he'd be laying in bed reading it. And I just felt like, oh my gosh, she's reading it. Like, this is so wild. Cause there are just stories in there of like shared experiences that we've had, or like things that I like never really shared with him about how I was feeling in our season of loss or things like that. And it just felt so vulnerable. But one of the mornings after he was reading it, he was like, I feel like I'm getting to know you on a whole new level. And I just thought, like, that is a really cool compliment, and also just like a beautiful way that books can change lives. Like, you go deeper, and that's like the whole meaning of the book. Um Okay. Michelle Simpauken says, savoring getting quiet and reading your book. I have the Audible copy for when I'm driving and the hard copy for my personal quiet time. I'm inspired by you to return and nurture my creative side. Oh my goodness, Michelle. I love that. I'm the same way in that sometimes I need the audio and sometimes I need the hard book and sometimes I need a highlighter. And so just thank you for supporting this book and me, but also like I pray that it just helps nurture who you are and what your truth is. And I love that feedback so much. We are winding down, so we'll stay on for a couple more minutes. So if you have any questions, pop them in. And thank you so much for spending this time with me. Again, if you want to get a signed copy of How Are You Really, follow the link right there and grab a signed copy of the book. And I'm just so proud of this book and so excited for the way that it is already changing lives. And for me, like in the core of my being, I can already feel like this is literally just the starting line for this book. Like, I believe that this is just the beginning. And I'm so excited to watch it make ripples and waves in the world. Okay, Tammy said, I've left my full-time teaching career to follow my dreams and passion and starting my own advocating business. I'm an advocate for families with special needs kids in the school system. So reading your book, I feel I've already jumped into what I'm meant to. However, I'm questioning if I just jumped in too fast. Lots of second guessing. I'm finding your writing prompts helpful as I'm reading your book. I'm struggling to get the new business off and running, but I know I need to stay the course and give it time. So Tammy, congratulations on going for your dreams. I think it is one of the most terrifying things you can do. And so I just commend your bravery. One thing that I think is so important these days, and I often think about this illustration, is like, imagine, Tammy, if you and I were together and I was like, hey, Tam, come pull up a chair. Let's sit down and let's watch this tree grow. It would be so boring, right? Like, everything that's happening above the ground is happening so slowly. And sometimes we can't even see growth. We can't even see progress. But what we don't recognize in our lives and with a tree is that underneath the surface, the roots are spreading and lengthening and gripping and really firming up the foundation and longevity. And so as long as you are working on strengthening that foundation, in growing your roots, in progress that might not look impressive or be beautiful, but progress that is growing your confidence, that's literally all you can do. And I think for so many of us, when we second guess, we already know the answer. You already know if what you did was the right move, if you're going in the right direction, you already know. And so the invitation is really just to get honest with yourself and come home to yourself, but also to celebrate any progress as progress. And slower growth equals the deeper roots. Dana said, first book club meeting is the 17th. So excited. I just pulled the trigger and started it. I've never done one before, but you inspired me. Oh my gosh. We are literally within the next day or two releasing a book club guide, because so many people are using this book for a book club, which I think is so incredible. And I'm so excited about it because one thing that I really had this realization is, the world is incredibly heavy right now. A lot of us are questioning just about everything. And I recognize the gift of handing this book to somebody that you love, because I know that we are all craving these conversations. I know we're craving to get past the small stuff, to stop staying at the surface, to dive deeper with ourselves and with each other in our lives. And I feel like I had this realization of like, in gifting somebody this book, you are literally saying, I care about how you are and I want to have conversations about it. I want us to talk about how are you really, and what is your truth, and how do I help back up your beliefs, whatever they are. And I just feel like it's a beautiful extension. And I'm so excited. I have a book club that I helped start during COVID. And I recognize, like, certain books bring this depth to the conversation that is undeniable, that like helps us grow as humans, but also as a community. And so thinking about this book being in book clubs is so exciting to me, because I feel like it'll help people get past the small stuff and dive deeper. And I think that's something that we are really, really craving. Okay, let's see. Your new follower, can't wait to see you at the Q&A on Sunday. What advice would you give someone who is insecure and needs to get out of their comfort zone? Hi, Cynthia. So excited to meet you in just a few days. It's going to be amazing. I'll be out and about in the Twin Cities, or we just call it the cities, from Duluth. And to get out of your comfort zone, I think you have to make other people feel comfortable. And what I mean by that is, there's this line in the book that says, loneliness isn't being in isolation. Loneliness is being surrounded but not fully known. And one of the biggest things that I felt and learned in this experience and in this question, how are you really, is that if we're willing to go there first, we can bring other people with us. And so getting out of our comfort zone sometimes means just taking that first step, just going there. And it takes courage. But when you do that, it invites people to do that with you, and it really makes a massive difference. And so I would just say, sign up. If you can bring friends with you or bring a friend with you, you have that accountability to show up. But also don't be afraid to go there. Don't be afraid to go there first. And I think that's beautiful. Jamie said, new follower. Hi from Duluth. Hello. We're in the same city. And she joined as we were discussing the marriage app. The app is called Paired, Paired. And it is worth every penny. It is a paid app. It's not too terrible. But it has been something that I've really enjoyed doing with Drew, and something that's really opened us up for discussion, and something that I've shared about to so many people. I wish I had an affiliate link for it. Susan said, Jenna, when you started writing, where did you start? You want to know where I started? I have a picture of it, actually. I'm so glad I took a picture of it. I first started in our comfy leather chair up north. But I just literally opened up a Google Doc and I titled it, I am writing a book. And I feel like a lot of times we title things like, if I were to write a book, or when I write a book, and I wrote, I am going to write a book. And I literally just started with the first story I could think of. It is not like, when I wrote, it did not go in order. Like the order you see in this book was very thoughtfully curated from all of the stories and things that I wrote, put together. We changed the format, the structure so many times, but you need words in order to figure those things out. And so I literally just started writing. Okay, let's see here. Tammy says, so meaningful and helpful. Sandra says, great analogy of growth above the ground. And Teresa says, I would love a book club guide. Stay tuned. We're going to have that. We'll announce where you can get your hands on that if you want to do a book club. I want to give you one final reminder. You can grab a signed copy at premiercollectibles.com/Kutcher. this has been a very wild journey, a journey that I never expected to go on, but something that I am so grateful I did. I think, I've said often, like, this isn't my life's work, but it is the most important piece of work in my life. And it wouldn't be what it is without you. So I just want to say thank you so much for supporting me, for supporting How Are You Really, for supporting the podcast, the business, all of the things, for supporting my family and loving us. This has been a massive undertaking, but like the most exciting thing I've ever done. And I'm just so excited to see what's next and what's to come. And I'm even more excited to just bask in the impact of what these pages will have. So if you have not yet, I hope that you pick up your copy of How Are You Really anywhere books are sold. And I hope that it invites you to figure out what your truth is and how you can live it one answer at a time. Thank you so much for being with me today. And thank you for helping me celebrate. And I hope you enjoy the book. I'll talk to you soon.
Hey, this is John Acuff, New York Times best-selling author of 7 books and someone who's done a live signing. If you like the one you just watched, make sure you check out our YouTube channel. It's full of amazing authors having great conversations and signing books for viewers just like you. So make sure you subscribe, and thanks for watching today.